The warehouse on Industrial Terrace. Kingston. A sealed warehouse. Industrial Terrace. Customs officers slice open a shipment labeled industrial water heaters. Routine inspection, paperwork clean, exported from the United States. Then someone notices the weight. Too heavy. The first tank is cut open. Inside, not plumbing equipment. Firearms, dozens of them. By the time the operation ends, authorities have seized more than 200 guns and tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition, one of the largest weapons finds in Jamaica's history. The public wants names. Investigators stay silent. But behind closed doors, one name circulates in whispers. A businessman, a political insider, a man long accused of moving in the shadows, Danhai Williams. And what authorities would later examine wasn't just a gun shipment. It was a decades-long pattern of alleged influence, financial manipulation, and political insulation that made him, in the eyes of critics, untouchable. But to understand how a man could face accusations tied to hundreds of millions and still walk free, we have to go back to East Kingston. Origins in a political battlefield. East Kingston has long been more than a neighborhood. It is political territory. Communities like Rockfort and Jungle were shaped by decades of partisan rivalry between Jamaica's major political parties. Area leaders, often referred to as Dons, controlled access to jobs, contracts, and protection. It was within this ecosystem that Danhai Williams emerged. By the late 1980s, he was operating Danville Construction, positioning himself as a businessman aligned with the People's National Party. He was not known as a street enforcer. He wore suits, not camouflage. But in Kingston, power doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks administrative, and sometimes it looks legitimate. What the public didn't know was that his name would soon surface in connection with one of the most shocking crimes in modern Jamaican history, the assassination that changed everything. In November 1987, High Court Judge Derek Hugh was murdered at his East Kingston home. Gunmen reportedly entered the property in the early morning hours, dragged the judge outside, and executed him. A witness survived. One of the gunmen was later convicted, but speculation persisted that the killing was not random. Sources alleged that the judge had been examining sensitive matters, including drug-related files, and that powerful interests may have been threatened. Danhai Williams was never charged in connection with the murder. However, allegations linking him to the broader circumstances circulated for years in investigative circles. No formal case was brought. No courtroom testimony tied him to the crime. And yet, his name remained in conversations about influence and obstruction. For many observers, this was the first sign that Williams operated differently. He was never at the scene, never publicly accused in court, but always nearby in the narrative. And this was only the beginning. Building the financial machine. By the early 2000s, Williams's construction company became central to a massive fraud investigation tied to Jamaica's National Housing Development Corporation and the Operation Pride housing program. Operation Pride was designed to provide affordable housing solutions for low and middle-income Jamaicans. Instead, investigators alleged, it became vulnerable to corruption. In 2003, Williams and several co-accused were charged in connection with an alleged scheme involving forged documents, fraudulent certificates, and payments for work that was either incomplete or never done. The figure cited, approximately $451 million Jamaican dollars. The prosecution alleged that funds were siphoned through falsified paperwork and manipulated approvals. Williams denied wrongdoing. His bail was set. Court dates were scheduled, but the trial dragged on. Witnesses became unavailable. Key testimony never materialized. In 2008, the Director of Public Prosecutions dropped the criminal case, citing the inability to locate crucial witnesses. No conviction, no imprisonment. The civil matter that followed also ended without liability. For critics, the outcome reinforced a belief that Williams' connections extended beyond business. For supporters, it proved the allegations lacked evidence. But what authorities discovered next shocked even veteran detectives. The fraud investigation may have collapsed, but intelligence suggested Williams' network extended far beyond housing contracts. The structure behind the allegations. Investigative sources described a layered system. At the top, businessmen with political access. Below them, intermediaries managing contracts, procurement, and approvals. Further down, community enforcers controlling territory. Recruitment wasn't about street loyalty alone. It involved accountants, project managers, and politically connected facilitators. Money flow allegedly moved through legitimate contracts first, then through subcontracting chains. Cash was king. Paper trails were complex. In communities like Rockfort and Augusttown, influence was reinforced through economic leverage. Jobs, construction subcontracts, access to government-linked projects. In East Kingston's political environment, control of contracts translated to influence over voters. But influence requires protection, and that protection, critics alleged, came from relationships within segments of the police force and political machinery. None of these allegations resulted in convictions, yet the perception of insulation grew stronger with each failed prosecution. The KL scandal and the police connection. In 2003, 4 civilians were killed in Clarendon in an incident involving members of the Crime Management Unit. Police initially described it as a shootout. Witnesses disputed that version. During investigations, it was alleged that a senior officer contacted Danhai Williams requesting a firearm to plant at the scene. Williams was listed as a potential key witness in the prosecution. He did not testify. The officers were eventually acquitted. Williams was never charged in connection with the incident, but the episode deepened concerns about blurred lines between powerful civilians and segments of law enforcement. If true, it suggested something alarming. Not just corruption, but collaboration. Again, but no conviction. Again, no prison sentence. And the perception of untouchability hardened. The Florida exit, 2009. As Jamaica intensified its crackdown on organized crime following the extradition of West Kingston strongman Christopher Dudu's Coke, police began summoning area leaders and influential figures for questioning. Williams's name surfaced among individuals of interest. But by then, he was reportedly in Florida, living in the Miami or West Palm Beach area. Jamaican authorities stated publicly that he remained a person of interest. However, no active Jamaican warrant led to extradition proceedings. Reports surfaced suggesting U.S. authorities were examining his activities. No public indictment followed. And as years passed, the housing fraud case faded into history. He remained abroad, free. The gun pipeline allegations. Then came the industrial terrace seizure. Over 200 firearms concealed inside industrial equipment shipped from the United States. Authorities confirmed the scale. They did not confirm suspects. But intelligence reports and unnamed sources allege that the shipment may have been part of a broader international smuggling network. Williams's name was mentioned in certain circles as a possible figure connected to cross-border logistics and distribution networks. These allegations remain unproven in court. No formal charges have been publicly confirmed linking him to that seizure, yet the implications were staggering. If such a network existed, it would require coordination across borders, shipping channels, storage facilities, and street-level distributors. Weapons allegedly destined for areas like Spanish Town, West Kingston, and Rockfort would alter power balances overnight. Firearms shape elections. They shape gang hierarchies. They shape who lives and who dies. And if a businessman with political ties sat at the top of such a chain, it would represent a new model of organized crime. One rooted in contracts and cargo manifests rather than street corners. But this was only the beginning of a deeper question. Why did case after case collapse? The pattern across decades. Allegations emerged. Murder conspiracies, police cover-ups, fraud schemes, gun trafficking suspicions. Yet courtroom convictions never materialized. Witnesses disappeared. Cases were dropped. Extradition stalled. Supporters argue that allegations without evidence prove nothing. Critics argue that influence can suffocate evidence before it reaches court. The truth lies somewhere inside sealed files, confidential intelligence, and political history. What remains undeniable is this: no Jamaican court has convicted Danhai Williams of the crimes often associated with his name, and that legal reality shapes the narrative. The aftermath and legacy, Operation Pride, became synonymous with mismanagement and massive financial losses. East Kingston remains a political battleground. Gun violence continues to plague communities tied to historical power struggles. The 2025 weapons seizure stands as one of the largest in the island's history, a reminder of how international smuggling networks can operate beneath legitimate trade routes. Williams, reportedly still in Florida, remains a figure surrounded by controversy, but not convictions. For some, he represents systemic failure. For others, he represents overreach and unproven accusation. But his story exposes a deeper tension inside Jamaica's power structure. If you value serious, investigative crime documentaries that examine power, not just personalities, subscribe. Comment below. Is Danhai Williams a symbol of systemic corruption, or proof that allegations without convictions should mean closure? And tell us which hidden power structure we should investigate next. The next story is already unfolding.